So, welcome everyone. Johnny, Cody, Mehernaz,
Uh-huh.
welcome.
Thank
and, and,
you.
and me, of course, Eva. Uh, this is magnificent times, and indeed we are in magnificent times, aren't we?
Yes.
So, I know there's been a lot of going on in the universe, and it sure makes its effect on us all. And today's topic was about Mandela effect, time loops, and timeline jumping, and whatever else that is coming up. So, who wants to start?
Mehernaz, why don't you tell us what's going on with the astrological?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. All right. So right now we're in new moon energy on May 30th. We have a new moon in Gemini. But what's more important is what we recently went through. We went through this extremely intense eclipse season and the last lunar. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that before I jump into the new moon, because we've been through a giant transition and this new moon is anchoring the new beginning after that giant transition. So first we had the Jupiter Neptune conjunction, which was before the eclipse season, about 3 to 4 weeks ago. At that point, what was happening was there was a merger of the divine masculine and feminine sides within us, which was 2 years from the the conjunction of 2020 solstice, which was the divine feminine rising. So overall, there is a rising and then there is a merger. So we have all kind of come into anything that was subdued inside us that was feminine has come into power. And now that we have worked on those wounds, we're now coming to a point of union and balance, where it's like, okay, I have done my, this is as a collective, right, but also individually. So I've done all my upgrading, and I have, all the eons and eons of timelines of submission. Now they have come up, and now we are merging the two and coming into union, and the forgiveness and the release and all of that. Then came the eclipses. Now these eclipses have shaken up so much for so many. I mean, eclipses always do that. They always kind of bring up everything we shove in the closet and put it in our face, so we have to deal with it because but that's how the growth gets accelerated. So the solar eclipse, and the eclipse season always happens in pairs. So we had our solar eclipse in Taurus. So all of the external changes we were going through were physically in our bodies, when all of us were going through our physical changes, whether it's new habits that we formed for our bodies, new nutrition. A lot of women were feeling things in their uterus, because again, that the uterus is the womb, the divine feminine rising. So eons and eons of timelines of persecution, of being put down, whatever it was, all those imprints were sort of rising for being released. And when I mention the word feminine and masculine, I'm really not talking about a man or a woman, because we have both sides and all of us, right? So this is, men have faced that, everyone's faced. So as our body shifted, and I mean, the light has been here, and our bodies are just learning to integrate it in a deeper level, because Taurus is our bodies, fixed earth, Gaia, our human cells, and our homes. So things around that are changing. And then after that, we went into the lunar eclipse in Scorpio, and that was deep, deep, deep. I mean, that's as deep as it can go, because the lunar eclipse anyway works on the on the unconscious layers, because it's the moon. And then it was in Scorpio, and Scorpio goes so deep, and we still were in the energy of the conjunction with the Pluto, we just came out of that energy right around the time of the Scorpio eclipse. So there's so much Pluto energy. So we were all kind of working with rebirthing many deep layers of the psyche and the unconscious. And as such, as we did that, we changed and shifted as humans. So a couple of years ago, when we started, when our emotions and our minds were shifting with the other conjunction, like our minds were anchoring the light. Now our bodies are physically being shifted to be able to anchor the light, because the if your vessel is not clean, it cannot take that in, right? So that's what was happening in terms of the cleansing. And now, after we've gone through all those intense cleansing, we're in the energy of the new moon in Gemini, which is very different energy. And And there's so much. So this new moon is conjuncting. So first of all, Gemini is all about communication, proximity, neighbors, people in our immediate lives, like siblings and like just so it's about new beginnings in the way we communicate with others. Now that we have gone through our own internal shifts and strengthened, how do we take that strength and communicate with the people around us? And so now what's going to happen is our when we decided to come into our power, this is our test of actually using that power as we go out into the society and start our communication. So how have these shifts manifested into your left brain communicating Mercury, which rules Gemini? So and then this new moon has aspects to Aries and Mars and Chiron. It's literally making a T square to Aries, Mars, and Chiron. It's this is huge, because whenever Aries is in picture, it's all about forward momentum. Mars will give the energy. So what is Mars giving the energy to? Mars is giving the energy to move forward in Aries, along with Chiron, which is Chiron always comes to heal wounds, our deepest wounds. So how do we move forward in action to heal those deepest wounds? That's the energy, but it's the energy of moving forward. There is no more looking back. We have processed and processed and processed, and it's now time to drop it and move forward. That's what it is, because the processing is complete. And in the new world order, we get to drop that karma. Like this is something, this type of energy, like for eons of time, like, I mean, I don't know, for like 10 years ago, it was very different. And, since the time of the harmonic convergence, in fact, the ability to completely drop our old ways and shift into the new ways is getting so much easier. And everything we're manifesting is happening moment to moment. The manifestation is so much stronger. So it's so important at this point in time where we watch our thoughts and where our thoughts are. And so what Pluto does is, okay, you dive deep into all the layers of your psyche, but don't get stuck there, because your oxygen tank is going to run out. So dive deep into it, process it, but then come right out of it, because you have work to do. There's forward momentum, there's action, and all of that with this new moon energy and with all this Aries, and we moved from Pisces season to Aries season. Now we're moving into Gemini season. So, so it was all about cleansing the old layers, anchoring it into the self. And now how do we take that out into the society, into our loved ones, into our communication, into the way we work with others. And so there is that, but there's also Saturn in the mix, saying that, bringing in the discipline. So the more disciplined we are about the new routines that we have created, which are of self-love and self-care, how do we take that and then move into the new thing? So now, how does this relate to our discussion? I mean, timeline jumping. Huge topic. I'm so excited about, this topic and everything that all of you have to say. But we literally are jumping in timelines in terms of that we can actually get to drop. And as soon as we drop that, we move into our new reality. And the choice is ours. What reality we're making, that is our choice. But when we choose that, it will manifest way quicker than it used to before. So you better, where your thoughts are is so important right now. You better be thinking about what you really want to create, and don't even worry about how it'll happen, because it really, miracles are happening moment to moment. But you just have to keep your eye on the prize and see what you want to create. And you have to be really, really clear about that. And I mean, clarity is hard when you are going into a space which is so much different than the space that was. So sometimes we don't exactly know what we're going to create, but you can't always know how you want to feel. So be around, how do I want to feel? And that's the reality I want to be in. And however spirit wants to manifest that reality, that surrender, because as the world goes through all these shifts, all we can do is be in surrender, but not in a surrender in the sense that, oh my God, everything's going down the drain. Not that way. It's more like, the world can do whatever it wants to do. This is how I want my reality to be. Because when things are in a flux, it's the best time to manifest, because you can, it'll place you in that spot where you want to be, as everything else does what it needs to do. And so many of us are here to be the light showers, to be the way showers to others as the world is shifting. So, but we can choose to do it by being in our joy. We no longer have to do it by any means of sacrifice. And that's why we were shedding all the old realities of the age of Pisces, throughout this season, and whatever imprints that it had left on us. But yeah, so that's all I have to say for now.
Wow, you are so good.
Yeah. Wow.
What am I
It's
supposed to say after this? Well, I can actually stop because I have felt a lot of what you have just gone through while you're talking. I have been, I have this Swedish page too, and I have just been writing about manifestation and how to just let go and feel the energy, to be there and to hold on to your thoughts and visualize and keep the focus visualizing on the things that you really, really want. And so just to hear you is like sum it up for me right now. And I also have felt this urge within to just let go of the other outside and the other realms
Yes,
that you are living in, and just go with the flow and do whatever I want to do from my heart's desire. So
right.
that is perfect. And then how it connects to timeline jumps, well, let me say this. When
Mhm.
I sometimes go into another state of mind when I go to work, in my other work, sometimes I drop in energy so heavy that I can't actually move my body. I feel like I'm stuck in the floor where I'm standing. So I also shift the timeline and energy when I'm doing things that I really want to do, and I feel high and vibrating and feeling so really, really good. So that is actually a shift in the jump, in the timeline jumping. Oh my
Yes,
god, I don't know how to.
right. Because we have both timelines happening, right? And the third
Yeah.
dimensional timeline is going to go through its so-called rebirth and destruction. So we have to pick the other one. Otherwise, we don't want to go down with that. And every time we're going down, you just kind of switch back up, like you said. I love it, Eva. So you're always in sync, All of
Yeah,
us intuitive people, we're in sync.
You guys,
that's
I'm blown away because I wrote down the scientific part of me wrote down some notes, and the the very last part, on timeline jumping, it says, it there's 4 things. You have to identify the timeline you want to move into, and you have to shift your vibrational state to match it. Then you lock that vibrational state in so it doesn't waver. And then you take an action that is an expression of your new timeline. So the big thing they said, to do this is perseverance. You just keep at it, perseverance. And
Oh my God.
I'm just
Josh,
blown away. I'm just blown away by what you guys, it's like and it's so important right now.
you just nailed it down, John. Thank you for these steps. These steps are so important. So this is where Saturn comes in the mix, the discipline, because when we're going to a new timeline, it's something we're not used to. So we keep falling back, right? Like for instance, if your goal is self-love and you want to act in self-love, and then the tests will come. Someone will want your help, someone will want to do, and then you go, in that thing. And then you pull yourself back and you're like, no, that's not the timeline I want to be in. So how do I be on it? By being on it, like taking
Yeah.
action, and not
Yeah.
all those thoughts. The thoughts have to convert into action. So thank you for nailing this down in these steps.
Well, I'm getting the chills, you guys. I'm getting the chills. Woo.
Oh, this is so great. And I actually drew a card before we started, and it's King of Raphael. I'm just going to hold
Oh,
it here so you can see it. It's from Radley Valentine. Is it? Yeah, Radley
yeah.
Valentine. Yeah. And the card actually says, warm, generous, honorable, refined. And yes, it's safe to trust the ability to accomplish many things at once. Follow your creative passion. And if you are reading the written words to it, it also said it's time to go within and find the beauty and the art creation that you want to bring forward. And that could be music, that could be writing, that could be painting, that could be verbal communication, whatever it is that brings you forward. So that is certainly a red thread that are leaping through here. So how do you see it, Cody? Have you experienced these timelines?
Yes, but I get more like Johnny, more scientific or more mechanical with it. It's not as esoteric, if you will, or whatever. It's more like I look at it as the mechanism of shifting from one frame to another frame to another frame as we're constantly shifting. And so when you're talking about like timeline shifts or jumps and all that stuff, it's like we're literally every single moment is a jump. It's a shift. It's a shift. It's a shift. It's a shift. And so that's like the illusion of 3D, you know, like the film strip. I always love the analogy of a film strip has all these different, you know, things. And so you're just going from one to one to one. That gives the illusion of movement and time. But because we're multidimensional and we have this creative thing, it's like that film strip gets expanded into all possibilities that you can go and jump to. And so all you have to, or not all you have to do, but what you do is you just, you know, get the frequency, the frame that you want to actually be in, and that, you know, you shift to that and it's already there. You just shift to the thing that's already there. And so I see it, you know, more expansive or kind of something that's already there, and you just kind of have to match the frequency of, you know.
That
Thank
is
you, Cody.
visualizing the pictures that you are talking about right now. Yeah, it's how you want to see those things. But it also connect me to time loops because I accidentally jumped into a live that Rick Jewers were doing earlier today,
I
and
did too.
he was talking about dropping into 4D and how the energy is pulling down, and I can totally relate to that. Because that is how I felt, like I said before, in certain situations I feel like how the energy is actually pulling me down, and I need to shift that within me. I can still do the same thing, I just need to shift the energy into something else to be aware of what's going on within me, and change the point of view, because you can actually change the time that you are in. So even if you are dropping in energy, you can shift that right back, even though you are doing the exactly same thing. At least that that is how it works for me.
I watched the same one, and he said the father told him to put this message out right now because we're being drawn back because of the power in the sun. And he doesn't want the light workers to lose heart. And it's only because we're there to help the newly awakened ones. And we don't have to do anything. They'll be drawn to us. They'll be drawn to us. And we just have to be ourselves. So I thought that was really important too, Eva. He said he didn't know how long it was going to last, but just to be aware of it and not get discouraged.
Yeah.
It's somewhat off, not off topic, but it kind of lines to the, like, you know, being an example of the newcomers, or, you know, kind of that type of thing of, you know, the three laughing monks story, where, you know, they would just sit in the middle of a village and start laughing, and then eventually people would kind of gather and start laughing, and they never taught anything. All they did just laughed, you know, and they just had that frequency. They held the frequency of joy and happiness and all that type of stuff, and so they never taught anything. They just held that light. And so that's kind of what we're kind of called to do right now, is hold your light, hold what you are, and the people will come to you, and you don't have to go to them, you know.
Yes, perfect, Cody, for that confirmation. Yes, that made me feel so much better today. I needed to hear that. So
Well,
we always feel like we
Mandela
have to
effect.
do something, and we've done enough already. We just have to be, or like, live your joy, like
Mm.
Like, and everything else will just fall into place. So keep your vibration high.
Yeah. Well, to me, that is the Mandela effect, because whenever you are holding the light, you are the vibration that will affect other people will be passed on and give consequences throughout the world. So whatever is happening is bringing the Mandela effect. But then there are some actions that are more in time and are more visible than others, and but yeah, I can totally see if I try to visualize how this actually is going down. You can see these pillar of lights anchoring into earth like a almost like, yeah, pillars of lights, and how the ripple effect is vibrating between them. So I don't have a good example of Mandela effect. I hope you do, Johnny.
Oh, I have my notes, and
Oh, good.
um um the this is the scientific definition of the Mandela effect. It was coined by this lady named, what is it, Fiona Broome, Broome, in 2009, when
Mm-hmm.
she recalled that Nelson Mandela was dying in a South African prison in the 80s, but he actually passed in 2013 and he was released from prison. And a lot of other people thought he died in prison. So then she started investigating more and more and more. And so that's the basis of why they call it the Mandela effect. Um, and some examples are like in the movie Star Wars, some people think there's a group that thinks, uh, what's the bad guy's name?
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father," when actually in the movie it was said, "No, I am your father." And I swear I heard, "Luke, I'm your father." So I'm one of those that, and then there's another one like "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all." Actually, in the movie, it didn't say that. It said "magic mirror on the wall," not "mirror, mirror on the wall," which I thought it said "mirror, mirror on the wall." And there's another one saying the location of New Zealand. People think that that New Zealand lies northeast of Australia, which is what I've always thought. And this just happened to me recently. And I was looking on the map and I saw it was southeast, it's not northeast. And I was blown away because in my mind, I always pictured it northeast.
Mm.
So this just actually happened to me like a month ago. And there's another one, in the 90s, there was a comedian called Sinbad, and supposedly he had there was a movie called Shazam, and there's no such movie that exists. And I swear I saw that movie where, you know, there's just all kinds of different examples of the Mandela effect, but there's some scientific explanations like alternate realities, like a timeline altered. There's false memories, which neuroscience can explain that. There's memory related concepts. There's misleading post-event, like eyewitness testimony saying, "Did you see that black car?" And then everybody will go, "Yeah, I saw the black car." Or priming, which are factors leading up to an event, which affects our perception. And then there's the internet's impact. There's a lot of things that contribute to that. Personally, there could be a combination of all those factors. But the whole point of it is, it says it's not the fact of what's happening, it's the fact that people are awakening up to the things that are happening. So that's the whole good in all of it, is people are noticing things more. And so that's the good part.
Mm.
Yeah. Not sure if it's like somewhat related to it, but I this morning I was trying to remember something that happened in my past, and not sure if it's just like memory altercation or not altered, but just like me not remembering it right, or if it actually happened. But it's kind of hard to explain. I don't want to make my mom sound bad right now, but basically, we're going to a movie, and it was either like Shrek or Ice Age, one of those movies, and it was like my little brother's first movie to go. So we're both like, it was my older brother, me, my younger brother. It was his first movie, and instead of my mom going into the movie theater with us, she like went off to a bar and got drunk and went home and left us at the movie theater. And so we stayed outside that movie theater until like 2 in the morning or something like that. That actually did happen. But the thing that I don't remember quite right is while we're waiting, we're kind of in this like plaza area, and cars aren't really allowed to be driving on that. It's kind of like a, that type of thing. And uh, in my memory, I remember a car being chased by police going through that. So we're sitting on a bench, and I remember seeing two cars pass, one with lights on, and the other, chasing. So I thought that there's, a police chase that happened right in front of us. But then I remember it in like two different ways of like, there is the police that were driving right in front of us, or they were just driving on the street by it. And I just, don't remember which one it actually was, And so I can't really recall if that event actually happened, or if it's just like me not remembering it right.
Wow.
So it might be just a little different
Good
from the
one.
Mandela, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
I would say that's a great
I
example.
find that kind of interesting, Cody, because last time we were spoke. Yeah, there's a lot of words there. But the last time, you actually had a dream about being chased by a police.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is something that is following you
Yeah, I have a weird thing with
consciously.
police. Yeah. Well, they've showed up many times in my life, and I wasn't the one that was like in the bad, but they would just kind of show up and bad things would happen. And so it was kind of, I just have weird remembrances of police involvement, and therefore whenever they show up, I feel like I'm going to get in trouble or something bad's going to happen. But usually it's not anything of the sort.
No.
Mhm.
Oh. I also have another point of view about this, like the mirror, mirror upon the wall you were talking about.
Mhm.
For me, that is a child, you know, what do you call it? Story, child story. So
Mhm.
when you are little, as me, when I was little girl, I heard it over and over and over, and it was like mirror, mirror upon the, you know.
Well,
So yeah, so that is not strange that if they are changing the lyrics or when right now and repeat it in a similar way, my subconscious will probably go back to that first memory I had of it, of the story. So that is why I'm hearing mirror mirror instead of something else. So I think there's a lot of things that are being explained logical. But I also heard about this thing about Nelson Mandela, that so many thought that he had died earlier and still was released from prison. So that is kind of interesting, how our minds are being either manipulated or how they are actually perceiving the reality that we are in. So, but the consequences of Mandela effect, isn't that another point of view too? Yeah, Cody.
well, I just remembered a Bashar channeling
Mm-hmm.
where he described in like every moment, so to speak, there's a collective consciousness of remembering what history was. And so 5 minutes ago, our collective consciousness, our collective remembrance of what history was could be completely different than what it is right now, because we're constantly shifting from frame to frame to frame. And we're shifting literally earth to earth to earth. It's not the same earth that we're on. It's not like we're the ones that are changing frames and the earth stays still. It's a complete shift of the universe from frame to frame to frame. And so there could be Earths that literally have Mandela dying, and then Earths that don't have it dying, and then there's a convergence of the collective that is right now. And so some of us remember that one, others remember that one, you know. And so it's kind of complicated because we're multidimensional and constantly shifting.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Definitely.
I just watched Cryon one that I sent out last night. I don't know if it was late or not, but it's just a short one. And Cryon said that we in the third dimensional realm think that everything has a beginning and an ending, like a string or a car or a person or a pet or anything. We see things as a beginning and an end. And he said, there is no beginning or end. We always were, and God always was, and we are eternal beings. And so that's one way we can jump out of that 3D timeline, is not thinking on a linear, there's a beginning or an end or this and that. It's come back to the now, because there's only the eternal now. That's all there is. There's nothing else. And that's where the magic is, you guys. That's where the miracles happen, is the now. And if we can just, and they and quantum physics calls it 0 point, and whatever you want to call it, going into the heart, but whatever you want to call it, that's what it is. Cryon explained it much better. He said he's going to release 4 episodes pretty soon that he had released in the 90s. He said it's important that people see this again,
Yeah, like
and
a
realize.
good visual of that is like some people believe, you know, that, or a perception of that, you know, in the future there's many possibilities type of thing, but the past is one singular thing. So it's like this, and then you have your now, and then there's like all these possibilities right here. So it's, you know, multiple things. But in actuality, or how I see it, is almost like a torus, to where there's the single point that is the now, and then there's all this that's happening like here that's almost constantly changing, then all that's in the forward that's constantly changing. The only thing that's constant is the now. You know, so it's always
Exactly.
this, like, you
Perfect.
know.
That's perfect, Cody. Perfect. I love
Yeah.
that.
So, do you have any personal experiences of these timelines jumping? That you can give examples of?
Well, I'm not exactly sure if it's fully like time, because your mind kind of makes it self-believe that the timeline that you're on was, you know, it's always been, therefore you can't fully remember if things are changed. But there are the Mandela effects that you can tell that something's off. But for me, it's almost like a sense that I've shifted from a lower vibrational earth to a higher vibrational earth. And so there's always a sense that I could have been on this completely dark path, or very destructive. I could have died many times, but I didn't die. And so I have this sense that I'm, you know, very much on a different path, because I chose to be on a different path. I was conscious of my shifting instead of just letting it happen, so to speak, or letting the negative kind of overtake. So I'm not sure if it's an actual like complete timeline, you know, shift example, but that's just a feeling of there has been a shift. You know?
So, is there a difference between timeline jumping and rewriting my own path? Because, you know, like people are doing tarot readings, you know, they are presenting the opportunities that are in this moment if you continue on your path in this moment right now. But you have a free will, so if you change the concept of where you want to go, you will change your future to and where you would lead up to, which means that the information that you got from the reading doesn't add up to where you're heading in this moment. So that is that a timeline jumping, or is that rewriting your own path? What's the difference?
I don't know. It seems like it could be both.
I think, yeah, it's interlocked type of thing because the timeline is your path. So
Yeah.
therefore it's like you're trying to have two definitions, but they're the same definition, you know?
So we are sticking with the timeline jumping there.
Yeah, just stick with timeline jump.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I use timeline jumping whenever I feel like it. More when I was a kid than I do right now, because when you start to overthink things, it's more difficult. And as an adult, you're actually doing that a lot. So when you're a kid, you are letting go. And I've shared this with you in our crying club before, like a year ago. But whenever I felt when I was a kid that it was some days you woke up and like you know there's this like, oh, this is a great day to do this and that, and some days were feeling like, no, it was not a good day, a lot of bad stuff happened, you know, not accidentals, but it wasn't a happy day. Then I could squeeze my eyes, you know, so I could start to see patterns in like snowflakes and symbols and everything. And when I open up, I was in this bright world again where everyone was nice and everything was like
Yes.
a happy state of mind. Yeah.
Because that's your vibrational state of being. If your vibrational state of being is, you know, lower, then you're creating the frames that you're jumping from frame to frame to frame. Those are going to be at a lower state of being, so to speak. But when you take that moment and breathe, and you're completely new. You're in that, just that breath, I'm a completely different person within that couple seconds or whatever. Even just from frame to frame, you're completely new every single moment. So it's all about your vibrational state of being is what you're going to shift to and shift into or be, you know.
Yeah. But I'm still shifting concept of my own being, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I also have another example which I still use. I don't like to go to dentist. I don't think that's
Yes.
good. So yeah.
Me
So,
too.
but it's a necessity, right? You have to do it. So before I go there, I try to blank the time I'm going to spend there. Just make it like a white canvas, and jump ahead in my thoughts of the moment when I'm stepping out there and doing something else. And I have learned throughout the years to hold that vision, and today I usually don't remember so much from that time because I probably wasn't so much present there in my mind.
Exactly.
But my physical body were there, and but now everything is the dentists are so, you know, they are so concerned about the patient's well-being. So when you're sitting there in the dentist's chair, they always place a hand upon you, rubbing like,
Get
how
you.
are
Yes.
you? And that is pulling me down. And I'm like, don't talk to me. Leave me alone.
Exactly. I'm in a flow state. No. Okay. Flow state. Yes.
Are you breathing? Yes. Yeah, but it works. It actually
Yes.
does.
Yes.
It do works,
Yeah.
and for me that
Did,
is a small affected by timeline jumping. But I would like to jump into something else
yeah.
like Mars or
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's literally called time jumps, like Bashar has described it, but you always have the ability to have a further jump of frames. It's just that we choose to have a very small amount of jumps so that we can see the change and have more meaning to it, and it's more, you know, solid, if you will. But you could completely shift from one frame, and then the next frame you're completely somewhere else. You've shifted, you've jumped frames, you know, and that is a timeline jump. You jumped to a different time, but you have to be like fully ready for that time jump so that it's not destabilizing you, you know. And there has been times that people have jumped and only their mind have gone to the place, their body stays behind, and therefore they feel like they're crazy or they don't fit into the society anymore because their mind is completely gone. They've shifted, but their body is still there, and something else is kind of not taking over, but it's just not completely there anymore. And so you have to be completely ready for that jump, but you can further and further to jump, so it makes it seem like time moves faster or something like that, or all that type of things. And there's not a good example, but it's kind of comes back to changing timelines of if you think of a train station, there's many trains, and as the time has kind of gone on, it becomes harder and harder to change the train you're on because they're going faster and faster. And therefore it's like you're staying on, you want to have the train or the timeline that you're on before it happens, because if it's like you try to jump too quickly to another one, you might not make that jump, and it just messes up everything, so to speak. It's hard to explain, but basically you kind of want to be prepared for the jump or where you want to be before you're actually there, if you get it.
I got this picture of a Stargate, like the
Mhm,
Stargate they are showing on TV, and like you
mhm.
are stepping in there, but you press the wrong button, so
Yes, yes, exactly.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
That would be
But
frightening.
Mm.
I use that technique that you use like almost any time that I have to go out and do something. I really don't like going out. I'm very much a hermit, if you will, and so anytime I have to go out and do groceries or anything, I always envision myself already at home watching anime or doing something. I'm already past that point, and therefore whenever I have that visualization, it seems like it goes faster or smoother and that type of thing, and so I'm not as anxious about being there in the moment. I go into that flow state of it's just happening, and I kind of just go with it. I go into automatic pilot almost.
Mm. So this is also about keeping your visions straight and focusing to the end of the road that you want to go
Yes,
right now. So
yes,
I would like to hear what Mehernaz says,
yes. All
if
right,
she
I will
has
do that.
experienced anything, but she is probably at work, so you have to give her that space. But yeah, well, that is kind of interesting actually, that you are able to move time, and you said it like slowing down times, and that is also something that you can do with your own mind, you know slow time slow the time down, so you have actually more time within the usually time frame. That is
Exactly. Yes.
quite awesome when you're actually noticing that you have accomplished everything that you should be doing, and it usually takes a couple of hours, and you now have done it under an hour, and that is so
Well,
freaking awesome.
if you know the concept of frames per second, like having a
Mm.
30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, whatever, we're basically operating at like billions of frames per second. But like that, what you're doing with that is you're extending frames or adding more frames. And so it seems like it goes slower because you have more frames that you're going through, or you can take away frames and make it seem like it's going faster. But I always go to the extremes and kind of get scared with it, to where it's like if you experience 1 hour as like a year, it feels like you're trapped in your body because everything's going so slow. Or if you experience a year, or if you go a year and it only feels like an hour, then you're almost losing your entire life because it's going too fast. And so I go into extremes of like, would I rather have a year pass in an hour, or an hour feel like a year? And I always go for the year, feeling like an hour, because I know I'm eternal. Therefore I don't need to have that extra time, and I would feel like trapped in earth or trapped in my body. But I've literally felt or experienced that it's spreading out of time, to where it was like one of my first cannabis experiences, but it was cannabis and heroin at the same time. Therefore, they mixed, and it created this weird experience to where I could see people walking past me frame by frame, so where they had their shadow of the last thing that they were at. So if you have like a cursor or like, you know, a thing, and then there's like that trail behind it, that's how I was seeing everything. Is it was like, you know, they were moving super slow and I could see their last step and last step and last step, but it was like fading away. And it was scary at the moment because I felt like I was trapped and I was dying or something like that. But when you can get in that mindset and do it without the chemical, you know, inducents.
Yeah, I was about to say that I can actually see those things sometimes without
Yes.
using anything.
Yes.
And I I don't know
Well,
anything
do
about it.
do you think LSD has a time altering factor with it? Because I had
Yes.
an
I think
experience
I think
once,
it does.
which I think that's what it was. Somebody gave me some orange juice at a party, and I thought I didn't, I think it was laced with LSD from the things that happened. But one thing that happened was, it was in this big mansion on a hill in California, and all of a sudden it was like the Garden of Eden, and there was a cow mooing, and it was like the beginning of time. I was in the new earth, or whatever you want to call it. I was like, and I didn't think anything of it until I got home. And then I had this window that had geometric shapes, and they turned into people and danced around. And then I realized that must be what's happening to me. That must be what's happening. So I don't know. Maybe that was the whole thing of Timothy O'Leary's thing with LSD and his experiments. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, there's a dimensional perception change. Like your physical body could still be in, you know, 3D timeline while your perception is seeing something completely different. But it does, you know, LSD can shorten time or extend time depending on what your frequency is at and how it, you know, affects you personally, if you will.
I think it would have been nice if they would have told me what was happening, but then I wouldn't have taken it. I wouldn't have taken it, but that's why they slipped it to me in orange juice, because that's the only thing that I had. And I've heard of people having bad trips and thinking they can fly and jumping out of windows and some bad things. And so, you know, I just, when we were talking about this, it just flashed back to that time.
Well, I got my memories too, but it's more like when you know when the light is kind of darker and you are moving your hand in front of you and you can see the hand following.
Yes.
So you're sitting there by yourself, you know, moving around and everything is floating. And I can see that people think that you're on drugs if they should watch,
Oh,
but
yes,
I'm not. But it's very interesting, like, ooh, yeah, kind of awesome. Kind of awesome. So
Really?
yeah. But yeah, so you were in a Garden of Eden with a cow.
Well,
That's
the cow was mooing, and the scenery was just like misty and green, and it was like the beginning of everything. It was just really amazing. It was pretty special.
yeah. Can't top that. Can't
No,
Yeah. Right.
but I don't want to do it again. Who knows what would
Yeah.
happen.
Right. I know. I wanted, like, I started my, you know, drug journey, so to speak, with the very, very hardcore drugs and moved to cannabis, which I guess is usually the other way around. But when I was doing that, it was mainly for pain. I just wanted to kind of escape the body pains and all that type of stuff. But eventually I was like, okay, I need to go into like psychedelics. I want to have like a true trip. I want to, you know, fully experience stuff. And so I would take those things, and the visuals wouldn't really come to me. Like the most I would have had would be the tracing of the stuff. And the next one would be like the mushrooms, where my perception did completely leave me, and there's nothing but geometric forms and basically seeing the blueprint of what was around me, the vibrational blueprint of all the stuff. And so I was always wanting those visuals so I could like fully experience it. But I've learned over time, and spirit guides and stuff like that, kind of tell me that I blocked myself from having those visuals because I wouldn't want to come back into my body if I went into those visuals. And so it, like even dreaming and doing lucid dreams and stuff like that, they say I can't fully get there because I would never want to come back into my body, So I definitely
Wow.
Mhm.
That reminds
Yes.
me of one time I took mushrooms and I did know what I was taking. It was with my sweetheart. This was way back when I was in my 20s. So it was the only time. And at first I got really nauseated. I guess that's what it does. And then what I remember is he was brushing his teeth and in the foam, he just like
Thanks, man.
it looked like he was foaming, like he was like foaming. It was like strange, and I could see through his skin, the layers of his skin. He had freckles, but I could see through the different layers. And then at that time, I was smoking and I wanted to quit. But when I looked at my cigarette, it turned into like a volcano. And after that, I quit smoking. So it was a good thing. It was a good thing.
So you got in touch with your gift, so to speak, your psychic gift.
I don't know. I don't know. This was before my awakening. This was way before my awakening when I was young and doing what everybody else did. I was like in the part of the hippie generation, the very tail end of it. And so, yeah, it was very common back then to participate in those things, especially, in California where I used to live.
Yeah.
So,
But like drugs have helped me in my spiritual expansion, or just knowing what the feelings are type of thing, to where when I started doing really intense heavy drugs, I was still in the mindset of like an atheist, if you will, just like everything's scientific, or it's all random, nothing's touching each other, it's all atoms, therefore it's all nothing, whatever. And but then after ODing, I completely shifted my mindset and went straight into spiritual stuff. And I had that remembrance of the feelings of being on drugs while in meditation. And so in meditation, I'd be like, oh snap, this is the feeling of heroin, but I didn't take heroin, so what's happening, and so I remember these feelings, these energies that are flowing within my body, and it almost was an help that allowed me to get through it easier and understand the energies that are flowing within my body much easier because I had those experiences before. But yeah.
and I have this feeling that meditation, why it's so important to meditate, is it does this too. And I remember in my 20s, a guy that had been in the military, and I'd never heard of meditation, but told me that they would go on, they had to carry these big heavy packs and go on these really long marches, and everybody would be really tired. And he said he would sit down and rest his back against a tree or something and meditate, and in 5 minutes he could have more energy to go and the other guys couldn't. And I always remembered that. And so when I started meditating as a Buddhist, I started realizing there's a big connection of meditating and being in the now, and it that's where the magic is. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I remember after a little bit of the sitting meditation, I started to dive deeper into the walking meditation, and having the stories of like Jesus and his followers walking, 100, many miles a day type of thing. And they would wouldn't have sore feet, or they would have the energy to just keep on going and stuff. And before that, I was like asthmatic. I could barely walk a mile without just being like, okay, type of thing. And so I started to develop that sense of like energy flow within my body while walking. And there's, I think, a couple of times where I truly felt like I was just floating across the thing. And even if I was walking uphill, I was being, pushed uphill. I wasn't, trudging uphill. Something was pushing me uphill. And so you just kind of float. And so it was a very cool experience to have.
A confirmation to that, Cody. I read a book
Mhm.
about a guy. I don't know if he was training with the Himalayan monks
Mhm.
or he just met him on the road, but I remember they could run miles and miles in these mountains in Tibet, and they would literally be floating and jumping, floating.
Mhm.
And you just reminded me of that. It was
Mhm.
a pretty spectacular book. I can't remember the name of it. I think I gave it to my grandson.
Yeah, there's one kind of downfall of, or not downfall, but of me noticing that the cannabis that I was having would increase my sensitivity to the energies in my body, and the energies around me would kind of increase my sensitivity to that type of stuff. Was one of the reasons why I kind of kept on using cannabis for so long, because I thought I needed to have this kind of tool to help me get more sensitive. Um, and after stopping cannabis, it's been over a month or something like that, so it's not been long, but I noticed that I don't have to have that tool to get as sensitive anymore. It's like the earth has supported me in just naturally being sensitive, and so I don't have to have that crutch, if you will.
Yay.
Mm.
That was nice. Yeah.
And I kind of thinking out, how do we connect this to time loops?
Yes. Yeah, right.
Because this, well, it's kind of interesting, because what you are describing is actually very relevant to everything that we are talking about. But there is a time loops. Time loops is where something is repeating itself, right?
I
So
I looked that up too.
yeah, do we think or feel like this is something that is the state of mind that we are, that you have described to be processing during this time, that because it's not about how you got access to those experiences, it's more like the experience by itself? Is that the experience that you experienced then, is that feeling in a repeatable circle right now? Do I make myself understood
Mm-hmm.
here?
So yeah, time is like a sphere. It constantly repeats the cycles or the lessons or whatever. And in a higher, well, it's not necessarily a circle. It's more like a spiral going up.
Mhm.
And so you have those points where it's like you experience something and you go through a lesson, and then at the next point you go through it at a different level or a higher level, and then the next one. And so you're constantly experiencing almost the same thing, but at a higher or different state of being.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
the I looked up time loop, and they said that how can a time loop happen? And it's because light can bend space and time, and the time fabric and gravity, but when bent, it merges. So they gave the example of a black hole, So anyway, that's how scientifically time light bends and then meets itself.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so light can bend the space-time fabric and gravity, and when bent, it can merge.
So, like everything that we've been talking about right now, that you have experienced when you were younger, it's like that experience has bent and is presenting itself right now, because there has to be some significance in the topic that we are bringing up to talk about the effects of it and how we are
Perfect.
present. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Leave it to you, Eva.
What do you say, Cody?
Yeah, it's yeah, well, I had the image of something that I kind of not learned, but we're like a bubble, if you will, or and in the middle or whatever is you, your perception, and on the surrounding edge of it is all the kind of multicolored membrane, and that's the freaking the frames that you experience are on that membrane, and all the lives, all the everything is just on that membrane. And so you can hit one side of it and the light will bend over and hit this side, or you kind of like are constantly going around this bubble, if you will. And it's kind of hard to, I guess, put into words that would make logical sense, because a lot of things aren't logical. Even though
No.
we want to make it logical, it's more of a feeling, or of a that this frame is connected to this frame back here, but you're experiencing in a different frame over here, and so it's yeah, kind of
To
weird.
make it more logical, you could say like, just look at the Facebook feed. Like it's repeating itself. It pops up memories of what happened a year ago, 5 years ago, and you are probably in the same phase or state of life that you were then, even though you have moved into something new. You can see that there is a fragment of whatever you were passing through at that time. So that is kind of a time loop that you are stuck in, because if you have totally left it, you wouldn't be in the same position or state of time. But of course, nature is also framed in a time loop, even though she is evolving and moving on. You have all this, spring, summer, winter, etc., and then it starts all over again, starting new, refreshing, and with something new. And she's always adding something to itself, and she's also removing something every year. So that is
Perfect.
also a time loop.
And I was always also thinking about how music, if you hear a song, how it brings you back to a moment in time. If it's a song that means something to you, you can go back to that time.
Hmm.
Or smells can do that.
Yeah.
Music.
But what Mehernaz was talking about today, when she was giving that introduction at the beginning, is like, now that when you're feeling that you are stuck in that, should I say negative time loop, because
Mhm.
Or
the
3D. Yeah.
yeah, so then it's more important now to recognize that you are in those spiral downwards, and be clear of how you want to manifest. It's like we have always said, be the pillar of light, holding the vision of a higher timeline for everyone's good. Um, so that is the key today, isn't it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're doing, get into to hold that thought of where you want to go with earth, with humanity, with all the elementary kingdoms, and drop it into your heart, and follow your heart with everything that you feel. Are you there, Mehernaz? Yeah, she is.
Yes, I am here. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like in terms of jumping timelines, it's one thing to do it etherically, and how Cody explained it. And I loved your explanation, Cody. Thank you for clarifying how we can really get caught up in a time warp, and how it's a sphere. But I feel like even in our day-to-day practical lives, we can do this. Like we could just do this in order to, by just simple manifestation, like just for our lives, because in the end, I love going out in space and doing all of that, but like that solar eclipse in Taurus was like, how are you anchoring? What is your physical life like? What are you eating? Like, how is your house? Like in the end, it's like everything has to match up. Like we could be traveling high in the astral and healing all the other people? What are we doing to heal ourselves? What are we doing to keep our basics, functional? And because, like cleanliness is next to godliness, simple, basic stuff, right? Energy is everything. So I was just kind of talking about that in terms of the timeline, and I understand that that's very different from the timeline jumping that in a sense, but it's the gradual practical way in which most people can jump a timeline, and which is so essential for everybody to do at this point between the third and the fifth dimensions as we face that choice, right? People who are newly awakening and all of that, and who cannot, who are not so much into astral traveling. Everybody can do it. You don't have to know how to astral travel the timeline. That was all I was getting at. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. And could you repeat what you said, like for people that are having trouble, go into the feeling when you said recall how you're feeling. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think the feeling was interesting because like the solar eclipse in Taurus was anchoring it into the physical, and the lunar eclipse in Scorpio is deeply, deeply how we're feeling. Because so many practitioners actually have the biggest wounds because we've all had our witch hunt timelines and all that. And like we are shedding, and like sometimes we wonder how other people, despite not being so high in vibration, have much more peaceful lives. And the reason is because we are cleansing, we're shifting things, timelines old, and we're constantly growing, and they're stagnant where they are. And so point being, like we have to also cleanse the gunk that we've carried across timelines, and this is when we do it, because this is when we ascend, this is when we get to drop it, and the opportunity exists. So why not just go in there and work on that first? Like healer, heal thyself. That's that theme was coming up in the last whole month with all of us. It's like yeah, we're always going helping others, and a lot of us actually use it as an escape. Like we're not doing things for ourselves. So and when I say that, I say myself included, right? I'm not just like pointing fingers out there. But so how do we just shift that? So how do we come to our peace? Like a lot of us want to heal others, because why is this deep need to heal others so important to us? Because there's something unfulfilled within us where we want that healing ourselves, right? So we have to look into all of those things. If everything was in order, would you still want to help other people? Probably yes, because we're volunteer souls. But would you do it at your own cost? Probably no, because that's the martyr. That's the vow of the martyr. That's the, and those things can be shifted so you can do the work and still be in your peace and joy, So I think that was the theme. So I hope that makes sense. So to do that, we have to dive deep into our emotions and process them. Just don't stay in there, come back out. So yeah.
Very important. Come back out.
Yes, come back out, raise those vibrations, because we can get stuck in those cycles and be like, but then those are repeating cycles over and over, and that means you've not learned the lesson, so it's repeating itself. So okay, you processed it, you dealt with it. How do you shift it? You just decide one day to wake up and say, my life is not going to be like that, and I'm going to shift it, because it's our action that'll shift it. And when you go back into that old pattern, you bring yourself back. And that's a discipline. It's just a discipline. You keep doing that until that new thing becomes a habit. So it's, and so yes, not make, okay, that's it.
Perseverance.
Yeah. I totally get what she means by getting discipline, because in the end of the day, that is the way to control the outcome of the day. It's how you are navigating yourself through it. And we do know that it's so easy to just sit back and not doing anything and just feeling the way you are, and you have this vision about where you want to go, where you want to be, and what you want to do, and still you are not doing anything to get there. And you are just sitting there hoping that it somehow will fall into your laps without doing anything. So it's like, yeah, well, that is a thing, and people don't realize that you actually have to dive in mentally into and invest that time within yourself.
You have to do the work. You have to do the work.
You have to do the work. Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The action is the completing of the circuit.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you can have a thought, you can have a visualization of what you want, but if there's no action to it, then the circuit isn't completed. You know, you have to have that action to actually say, oh yeah, this is the actual like thing that I want. You know, because if
Lights,
it's
camera, action.
yes, there you go. All right,
Yeah.
exactly. Mhm.
And if you are afraid to move towards that action, then there's probably something that you want to look at. Why are you afraid? Because those emotions are holding you back and are drawing you down. So you really need to dive in there and actually look at your life. Do I have this life that I want to have? Um, and it's a emotional and mental state of mind that you have to actually be in control of to move forward. Yeah, she's so good with words too.
Yes, yeah,
Just flows from her. Yes, right.
yes.
Yeah, it does. It makes
Thank
me
you,
feel.
Mehernaz, for your flowing. And you know, I mean, you all have your own different talents, and I think contributing all of our things together makes it more rich, and
Mhm.
everyone has their gifts, and you guys
Yes.
all, I recognize your gifts, and I love I love your gifts, because so many years I, as being awakening in, when I did so many years ago in the 80s, I was all alone for so many years, you guys. Nobody knew. I was like,
Mhm.
I could have been, you know, walking around with horn. I mean, I was like very different from everybody. I knew it, but I wasn't trying to be. It's just after you're awake, you can't go back to sleep.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, it's such a wonderful thing now what we're experiencing coming together, and we've all arrived here at this moment in time to help support each other wherever our journeys we've converged at this point in time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
it reminds me how important every aspect of existence is, because I see it as, and Bashar kind of explained it, but I kind of, you know, not take it further, but basically it's like a giant puzzle, right? And if there's one puzzle piece that isn't put into place, the puzzle isn't complete, and therefore existence wouldn't be existence. And so everything is put in its place perfectly to make the puzzle what it is. You know, you take one thing and existence wouldn't be existence. You know.
I'm just coming to my head now of the movie The Matrix. And I don't know, I know Cody's probably seen it. I don't know
Oh,
about you,
yes.
Eva, but but they're in the pods and they're
Mhm.
connected and they're all alone and they each have
Yes.
individual pods. And it took someone outside to unhook them
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
that pod. So it's like you can't do it alone. And we
Mhm.
have all this help from the unseen realms, and we don't realize it, but that's our help,
Mhm.
that's connecting us, unconnecting us from that, and now we are coming together. It's just like
It's
I see so many
yeah.
parallels.
Yeah, the Matrix is a perfect example of being awakened, because they're all, you know, asleep, and they're just batteries basically to the machines. And once that outside force, you know, awakens you up, you can't go back into that pod and become asleep. You know, that
Mhm.
you're awakened into that new existence. You know, and their
Mhm.
existence might be a bit harder than the one that they were in that illusion with. You know, their illusion was kind of, you know, just the normal everyday working a office job or whatever, as he was. And you come out and it's like they're fighting these machines. That's what you come out into the awaken, and now you're like you're fighting, not, you know, fighting to have this better life, to make it so they're all free, you know, not be controlled by the machines and be afraid of them and all that. It's a beautiful parallel to that, you know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Well, you know, Keanu Reeves says the Matrix movies are a documentary.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Breaking time loops.
Huh?
Breaking the time loops.
Yes, I
Yes.
was going to say that too, because like when I was saying the spiral and stuff like that, it is a spiral, but you can't break out of that cycle, and that's kind of like what we're actually trying to do is break out of these cycles that are constantly happening. And it's almost like the thought of reincarnation, when they teach reincarnation in like the actual, you know, Hinduism and all that type of stuff, their goal is to break out of the cycle of reincarnation, while Westerners would learn about reincarnation and be like, oh great, I get to live again, and be stuck in that reincarnation cycle. They'll think of it as a good thing, whereas the Hindus are like trying to get out of that cycle, you know.
Exactly. That's perfect. Thank you, Cody. You guys are awesome.
That was a pretty good way to describe it. I like that.
Yes, really good.
Yeah.
You know, I
Oh.
love what you said, Cody, because I wanna talk about this reincarnation concept. I mean, I grew up with Hinduism all around me, you know, and I teach about these rituals and all that. And I feel like that part is so important, but it's a choice. Like if you want to break outside the cycle of reincarnation, you are choosing spirit over matter. And it's a choice thing, you know. But then if you decide to stay in there and live peacefully and clear all your karma, so you know, whenever we go through, oh my God, I'm going through so much. Why? Because you're clearing all that. So it's really a choice. Like I remember when the fifth dimension, like stuff came up newly, it was like, it's a choice thing. Like, you know, everyone wanted to get their family on board and all that. No, maybe they want to choose. Maybe they like this dimension, but the dimension is going down to the dogs because Gaia is shifting. Because Gaia is shifting at this point in time. It wasn't always like that. I mean, so it's your choice, you know, like some people want to like just be rich and get the power and they still live in peace, you know. So I'm like, it's a choice, and we need to kind of give everybody their choice, because not everyone wants to choose spirit, because like you're already in the spirit world when you're not on earth, right? So like and you can be well anchored and still choose spirit and keep cleansing your karma, but then that's going to be intense, you know. It's not going to be a joyride while you enjoy it. So it's really a matter of perspective, and we need to just respect everyone's choice because they may not be ready at that point. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
That's where it's important to realize you got to let them come to you and not go out to do anything. Just hold the light, and whoever's meant to come will be drawn to you. So
Yeah, perfectly said. And I think that we are going to let that be the closing lines for today. So what have we learned, if we just should sum it up here in a few words?
Perseverance.
Yeah, I guess it would be discipline and free will. Discipline, free
So, yeah,
will.
keep focus on the higher timeline that you want to step into, and get your actions in order to perceive your dreams. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know if Mehernaz has a final word she wants to say, and yeah.
Well, no, that's it. Just kind of keep that vision high and the anchor high, right? And just keep going. That's all. Like and in terms of shifting, you know, really shift inside and out, and that self-love thing is so important no matter what. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mehernaz.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here, Cody, Johnny, Mehernaz.
Thank you, Eva, for bringing us together.
It's always a pleasure. Having so much fun just being around you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And please stay tuned. We will be back again with another topic to talk about. And keep that in mind. It's 22:22, so we are going to end this right now. Bless you all. Have a beautiful life. Keep your thoughts in line. Love you.
Love you too.
Love. Bye.
Yes.